Okay, hi everyone, welcome back. I think it is now to talk about Ondo because what we talked about the last time, actually I would argue to the T played out. If you remember in the previous video in Ondo, I think we were somewhere around these areas and the idea was that there's like a very high chance this is a 1, 2, 3 and where's our wave 4 and 5? Back then we didn't have it. That's why we argued, look, odds are we are going to have yet another move down in Ondo. And at that point, you know what? Fair enough. Maybe this 5 wave on a higher degree, it's going to be into this wave 5 right in here, and our move down is over. And as you can see, we did get a very strong move down in Ondo. Now, as you can see, followed by this strong move down, we got an immediate bounce back. And you might ask, well, okay, why are we getting this strong bounce? Simple reason, actually. Let's go on daily time frame. I would argue the main reason for why we got this massive bounce in Ondo, almost like a 40% bounce, actually comes down to what is going on in terms of classic TA. And let's just hide everything real quick. As you can see, right in here in Ondo, there was actually a decent area of support that sent the price up from here to about the highs. And as you can see, it's actually once more acting as a beautiful area of support. So again, you can definitely argue this is an area to consider in Ondo, and hopefully we are going to in here get a very strong reaction and God forbid not get a break of it. Now, having said all this, let's go on H1 time frame, because sure, having a complete 5 wave down and for us to be able to recognize all the subwaves in here is definitely nice. However, it's not really enough for us to be able to argue the bottom is in with a lot of confidence. What is actually enough? You probably know it, but for those of you who are new viewers, you see, if you want to argue the bottom is in, and for example, we're going to have a very strong, beautiful uptrend, fair enough. Off of the lowest low, for instance, in this region, you have to be able to find then a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave up. This specific scenario is called an impulse. Rules for it are, we should not have overlapping of the waves between wave 2 and 4 and in any kind of 5 wave. This wave 3 should not be the smallest wave. It's a big no in Elliott's waves. And for the subwaves, you know it, we're going to have 5 wave up into wave 1, 3, and 5. Excuse me, let's just do this. There we go. And for our wave 2 and 4, we can consider different possibilities. Let's say, sure, WXY for wave 4 and an ABC structure into wave 2. Now, here's a very important point. After completing a 5 wave right around the highs is not a beautiful buying opportunity. Why? Simple reason, the price has risen at that point way too much from the lows, and also after completing this structure, we are going to have, even according to the most optimistic and bullish case, one way or the other, a bit of a move down. And in most cases, this is actually going to be a deep move on the downside. And if we are truly bullish, then okay, this move must be a very slow and choppy one. And at that point, we're going to say, you know what? Yep, the bottom is in. And on a higher degree, this is 1. This is 2, and then we can expect a great move up into wave 3, 4, 5. And it's very important to understand that in terms of Elliott's waves, we usually argue wave 3 is quite a strong and sharp move on the upside. But before we get into all this goodness, we just have to have a 5 wave up followed by a correction down, a very slow and choppy phase. Now, having said all that, let's go on maybe 15-minute time frame and see what is going on in the recent bounce that we got in Ondo. Okay, let's zoom in more. Okay, in my view, we are most likely having from this point to about here and not here, 5 wave up into a wave 1, followed by possibly an ABC flat into wave 2, a strong move up into wave 3, correction for 4, another move up into wave 5, and notice that yes, this is actually, by the way, the highest high in here. And what did we say earlier? We said after completing a 5 wave, we have to be patient because odds are we're going to have a bit of a move on the downside. So I guess the $1,000,000 question is this: can we argue this is a correction down from this point to about here? And for example, in terms of the shape of it, maybe we're going to entertain the idea of having an ABC zigzag. The answer, yes, we can absolutely say that. However, for 2 reasons, I'm going to argue maybe this is a correction. Sure, do not get me wrong. However, it's part of a correction on a higher degree. Reason number 1, Well, simple actually. We're not really that lucky in most cases. Reason number two, which is more important, you see, earlier I told you after completing a 5 wave off of the lowest low, in most cases we are going to have a relatively deep move on the downside. And is it a deep correction or not? Let's just use Fibonacci's. There we go. As you can see, we haven't even in this phase down retraced to about the 38% level. So nope, unfortunately, by any standards, this is not going to be a deep correction for us. And that actually opens doors to maybe having some sort of, I think it is called an ABC flat structure. And I think specifically we're going to have something called an ABC expanded flat, which looks like this. This is our initial move down into a correction for wave B, which in it we are going to take this initial high, and then we're going to have a rather strong move down into our C leg. And for the sub waves, you know it, ABC into A, ABC into B, and then a beautiful 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave down. Generally, again, a very strong move down into wave C. Now, let's go on the live chart. Okay, by the way, let me be very clear. There's actually a real chance that we are going to have from these areas maybe another move on the upside. But even at that point, be patient and careful, because odds are at that point, these are just the subways for an ABC zigzag, and this was also ABC down. And then in here, you may end up seeing a very sharp violent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in order to hopefully, according to the optimistic possibility, complete the subways for an ABC flat. Now, do I have some more reasons to argue? Yeah, maybe we are going to have one more move down bare minimum in ONDO. I would argue yes. You see, let's go on H4, maybe even daily time frame, and hide everything. As you can see, no, I think it was actually in H4. Excuse me, there we go. As you can see, this is a massive bounce in just only one candlestick, and from the lows about 20 cents. This is about something like a 15% bounce in just a span of maybe 2 hours. And the shadow of this candlestick is quite large. And you might say, well, okay, this is only on this chart from TradingView. Well, not really. Let's go on Coinbase's chart. Yep, we also have this shadow. How about Bitstamp? Also, yes, we have the shadow. How about Kraken? Yes, we absolutely have the shadow. Now, why is this important? Because whenever you are having a strong and quick bounces like this, usually around the shadows, we actually have some gaps. And in my opinion, this is really key. Gaps 95+% of the time are going to get filled. So I'm going to say in ONDO, let's not even consider a very strong move down in order to get to all the way down here. Let's consider something like a move down in order to get to about these areas, because guess what? Also during this phase up, we created some gaps as well. So again, let's fill those gaps, and then, okay, fair enough. If we ended up having in like very short term a sharp and violent pullback in form of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave up, great sign at that point. In the next move on the downside right in here, we can open some long positions. So bottom line, in my opinion, is this: in ONDO, absolutely there is a decent chance that the bottom is in, for a couple of reasons. Number one, we are able to argue from the highs to about the lows, we are having a 5 wave. Number two, in terms of classic TA, this is actually a decent area of support. And also reason number three, we are able to argue off of the lows in ONDO in this bounce back, we have a beautiful looking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave impulsive structures. So again, a lot of signs do point to the bottom being finally in ONDO. However, again, I told you, let's be a bit more patient and watch the coming move on the downside very closely. And if in it we see the right structures, fair enough, it can be a beautiful long and also buy opportunity. And I hope I explained everything well and you understood what is going on in ONDO's chart. And until the next update, I hope you have a wonderful time. Goodbye.